Tim joined Elio Motors in November 13, and under his leadership, the team raised nearly $17 million in equity crowdfunding under Reg A+, and eventually took the company public as the first to complete the process. So please welcome Tim Andrews.
Any of you have teenagers? All right, my 14-year-old, who hasn't talked to me in about a year, we live together, pinged me right there and said, "Dad, I have a problem." And I'm like, okay, if he's pinging me, then it's something serious. He couldn't get in the gate. So I had to give him the gate code. And that's Aiden. That there's Paul Elio. He's the guy that came up with the vision that brought all the engineers together, and Paul's located right here. Paul, you should take a bow. Some of you don't know what the Elio is. Some of you do. We met a father of a reservation holder at lunch. What makes the Elio so unique is the fact that we have a low sticker price of $74.50. It's highly efficient. It gets up to 84 miles per gallon and 49 in the city. And obviously, the design of it is incredible. You don't see a lot of these going down the street. And it's not rocket science. Paul always likes to say a Hummer gets really bad gas mileage because a Hummer is fat and heavy. And put people front to back in a vehicle, you know, cut the weight in half, and you'll definitely get the mileage. So that's a little bit about that. It's funny. I'm a little bit nervous. I got up this morning, and I have 3 kids. And my little daughter, who's 3 years old, came up to me and was playing with my headset, and she said, "Daddy, what are you going to do today? You going to go to work?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "I'm going to take calls all day long, and I'm going to be trapped on this phone." And she said, "You're not going to get to go to the playground?" I'm like, and I was just thinking to myself, this is the playground. This is the fun stuff, because doing what we did was definitely a challenge on a lot of different levels. The Elio is an extremely safe vehicle. If you're going to get people to shift their paradigm in their head and go from 4 wheels to 3 wheels, you better make it safe. And we're engineering it to the highest vehicle safety standards. Obviously, a big thing of Paul's is it's going to be made in the United States. We took over the old GM Hummer plant in Shreveport, Louisiana. And it's kind of ironic that, you know, we're building such an efficient car in a plant that used to build an average vehicle that got, 9 miles to the gallon. Low execution risk. Well, what does that mean? We're utilizing components off the shelf. I get this question all the time. In fact, my dad drilled me on it, so I think I'm getting good at it. But he said, "How can you produce a vehicle so cheap?" And I said, "Dad, Paul has gone out with the engineering team and brought together a blue chip crew of the top suppliers, automotive suppliers in the world, and they have taken parts off the shelf and repurposed them or re-engineered them along with our team to build a very highly efficient, low-cost vehicle." So all the parts on the Elio are off the shelf. And there's less than 500 components to manage. Now, if you Google Toyota and you say how many parts are on an average Toyota, I believe it's 30,000? Yeah, 30,000 parts to manage on the average car that you're driving down the street. On our Elio, we have less than 500. And then obviously, because of the efforts of my team, we've been on a lot of the major news networks, and we've done a lot of things to get our message out there. But this is the skinny. A lot of people ask me all the time, they say, "How the heck were you guys able to generate the amount of money that you did?" And I'm going to tell you about some of the pitfalls we went through and some of the marketing that's needed to make yourself successful. Now, I got hired on, Paul always likes to point this out, it's funny. Okay, what did I do? Okay, Paul likes to point this out. He goes, right there at 2013, at the beginning of Facebook likes is when Tim got hired, except he does it on a reservation chart. And I say, no, that's when I hired Nicole. But I brought in a really good team, and they heard me sing this mantra over and over again. We're going to build our own radio station. We're going to build our own television station, okay? And we're going to do it on the internet. And I'm a direct response guy. I'm a branding guy. I work for R&R Partners, was involved in the Vegas thing and everything else. I know branding, but what gets me up in the morning is direct response, getting people to do something and selling them your product. When I came in, we were less than, I think about 20,000 Facebook likes. We started a digital and social media campaign and drove it all the way up to 350,000 Facebook likes. That is a built-in audience. You need to do that. The second thing is I wanted to drive traffic to our website. This is actually impresses me because these people spend millions and millions of dollars to get you to come to their website. Our vehicle had so much traction that at one point we were doing 500,000 unique visitors coming to our website, more than Fiat, more than Scion. And then there's a whole list that goes down below that. So we had this built-in traffic that we worked really hard on. If you look at this, this is our, what we call reward crowdfunding. We sell reservations for the vehicle. They come in increments of $100, $250, $500, and $1,000 reservation. It's a place in line. We offer both refundable and non-refundable reservations because we understand people have risk tolerances, and we want to give them an out if they don't want to be locked into this thing. We use the money all along the way to build our vehicle. When I came into the company, it's right there at the edge of 2013. This is the one Paul always points at. It makes me feel like crazy. I don't like crowds. And we had a huge gain because we started a huge public relations program. We started digital media, we started social media, and we ended up generating customers all the way across the United States. And people always ask us, you know, is all your demand basically condensed in New York or LA? That's where the population is. And we always show them that chart and say, no, we've got fans all the way across the United States. And it's the fans that have supported us that have made this company successful. And you have to think about that when you're doing marketing for your own company. So far, we've had really good success with our crowdfunding. Our rewards crowdfunding is still, I believe, the top one that's out there. The only one close to us is Pebble Watch. And then Reg A Plus, obviously, we raised just under $17 million. And we were the only ones that took it to the crowd. If you've seen a couple companies that have gotten more, it's because they've done it with brokerage. I like to put this slide in there, and I imagine Ryan goes, why did you put that in there? But Nicole heard me say this over and over and over again. When you're doing your marketing for your Reg A, it's an intensely difficult thing to market. You have to connect the dots. And the reason why I put GM up there, because GM does a lot of things right, but boy did they screw up on this day. In 2010, GM came out with a hybrid vehicle, a hybrid SUV. And I watched the segment on the Today Show for 5 minutes. They got 5 minutes of airtime. 30 seconds can cost you $250,000. They got 5 minutes. They had Matt Lauer jumping around in that thing. I went directly from that site to their website so I could learn about that vehicle, and I couldn't find it. And I just thought to myself, why would you spend that much money on public relations, have a consumer engage for that long, and not connect the dots on your website? I couldn't find the hybrid SUV on their website, okay? There was no microsite. There was nothing on it. I couldn't find it by searching. And I said, from that day on, that's not going to happen to us. We're going to make sure that everything I do from a marketing standpoint, I also teach school, and I teach my marketing students this, you have to connect the dots. You have a lot of challenge, or what we call channels out there, marketing channels, and you need to make sure they're all communicating in the same voice. I don't know if the rest of you have this, but I'm having trouble breathing. The wind that was blowing the last 2 days, any allergy sufferers out there? Oh my gosh. So if I stare off in a distance at any point, just realize it's medication induced. It's not my brain. But I always say, Nicole used to hear me say this all the time, right audience, right message, right offer, right time. That's key. You got to think through that stuff. And everything that we did, we would always go in our minds and go, are we making sure each one of those different things happen? Obviously, you have to choose the right audience. It's going to give you the biggest boom. You got to have the right message talking to that audience. You got to have the right offer for them to want to respond to, and you have to do it at the right time, okay? Don't sell Valentine's Day cards in July. It just doesn't work. And then connect the dots. Regulation A challenges. I had, I think it was Forbes magazine that interviewed us, the one where we were both quoted in. The lady asked me about some of the challenges that we faced. And the first challenge was Paul called me up early in the morning and said, we're going to do this thing called Regulation A. And I go, what the heck is Regulation A? I had no idea what it was. And I think you were kind of learning what this was from the get-go. And he's just like, it's a way we're going to raise money and go to the crowd. And we're going to give up equity in the company. And I'm like, oh my God, like how do you communicate that? And the other thing was we did it on June 15th or 16th is when we made this thing go live. Nicole was going crazy. The whole team was going crazy. And because literally we couldn't preheat the market. None of the regulations and everything that was out there, the way I understood it, we couldn't preheat the market and sell it. Now at that time I had about 250,000 email addresses, confirmed email addresses that were Elio fans. I had over 500,000 unique visitors with about 1 million total visitors coming to my website on a monthly basis, okay? So I have some serious audience out there. I had my Facebook, I had LinkedIn, I had all these different mediums, and I have to basically explain 2 different things to these folks. Number one, the regulations were untested that affect me as a marketer. In other words, they had regulations that were out there, but you don't want to step in a pile of doo-doo over this thing and end up in an orange jumpsuit, okay? So you want to make sure you do this thing right. And we had an incredible attorney, Faye Matsukage, that did a phenomenal job of just going through all this stuff and coaching us as far as what we could say and what we couldn't say. Message one, and there were no specialists in the market. There were people claiming that they were specialists, but we met a couple of them and they never ended up being specialists. So there was a lot of folks that understood IPOs and different things, but there really was no one central place that you could go and get help. The first message challenge that we had to do is we have to explain what is happening, how this process works, because you have to understand we have 250,000 people that are watching every move we make. And we need to explain to them what the heck is going on. And they don't understand Regulation A. Nobody understood it. I didn't understand it. It took me a while to get it into my noggin. And 2, we had to keep our rewards crowdfunding moving forward because that supported the company, okay? So 2 very difficult things that you have to communicate to your stewards out there. 1, you're now raising money. And 2, guess what? We're still raising money, but we're keeping our reservation program moving forward. And the other challenge that I heard Representative Schweikert talk about, it was a brand new investment community, okay? There's Start Engine, there's Seed Invest, there's different companies out there, but did they have a built-in audience? No, they had 0, okay? They had no one coming to their website. And then if you went to their website, they had us categorized with Johnny that I'm selling dog food or a new type of dog food, and another guy that was selling a spaceship that you could fly to work. So from a credibility standpoint, we were like, wow. And so our group had to be educated. They had to be instructed on what to do during each phase of this process. And like I said before, there was no built-in market. There was no Indiegogo or Kickstarter that could really help you out. But Start Engine did help us out. They brought Scott Purcell, who you heard talk this morning, which really helped us out tremendously with his services. So what did we do? We created a microsite, which you saw the video. That was the first thing people came to. And one of the things is I had to give people two choices. I couldn't give them more than that. Two choices, because I needed to make sure one of two things happened. Either one, they did an indication of interest. What the heck does that mean? And two, they could make a vehicle reservation. Extremely difficult to do. And I used to yell at the top of my lungs, no, don't do 3 things, don't do 4 things, 2 things. I only want people to make one of 2 choices. We designed the microsite very much like our website. In other words, some people say to me, Tim, why didn't you just put a little button on your website to go to this space? Well, you have to understand something. I needed to change consumer behavior. I needed to be the guy that walks into the room and yells, fire, okay? These people didn't know what was going on. So, to connect the dots, I wanted to drive all information to one URL, not start engine / Elio Motors. I wanted to drive all traffic to eliomotors.com because I knew I was going to get a lot of press, and we did. Set the world on fire. I got more phone calls on this than anything else in the world. Why the heck did you redirect the website? And even Paul would ask me, and all these folks that and I know digital marketing, but they would come to me and go, why did you do that? And I said, I had 1 million people coming to my website every single day. I have to basically hit them in the head and say, this is what we're doing. I want to create engagement, which is critical. I want my customer service department to be talking to these people and explaining what's happening. And better yet, once they said what they were confused on, I now could coach my customer service. I now could come up with marketing tools and re-educate that group even stronger. Okay? Once I told my friends that, they were okay with me, but they still thought I was crazy. So we did. We completely redirected everything to Start Engine page. All of my digital media, everything I was doing on social media, it was very simple. eliomotors.com, but you just happened to land on Start Engine. Okay? And we started communicating. We started doing press, email, social media. Our customer service was impeccable at the time, but it had its challenges. It definitely had its challenges. The results, we had about 40 million indications of interest. I think that's about right for what we thought we would be able to raise. I always put sizable, questionable quality email database. Now, when you're asking people to give you an email so that you can remarket to them, it would be nice to go through the whole process of verifying who they are. But we found out that Daffy Duck, Goofy, and Mickey Mouse like to invest large chunks of money. Okay, so we had to go in and we had to take a look at that email database and we had to do some pruning to make sure that it was correct. But the one key thing that we did by redirecting the website, by all the educational pieces we did and everything else, we created a preconditioned consumer market. They knew what was going to happen to them. They knew Elio Motors was in the business of selling equity in their company. There was no doubt. So here I go back to this. Hurry up and wait. This used to drive us crazy. Here we got all these indications of interest. We send them to the SEC, and the SEC sits on it forever. And we're like, we gotta go, we gotta go, we gotta go. Because remember, we started this thing in June, and we wanted to start raising money by September or sooner. And we couldn't. We had to wait. And I used to think to myself, well, what would be the worst case scenario? I'd call Nicole up or I'd call Chip up. I go, what would be the worst case scenario? And I go, have them call us on a Friday afternoon right before Thanksgiving. Damn it if they didn't do it. They gave us approval. Paul called me up and said, we're ready to go. We have to tell the market that we're raising money. So literally, we had an investment guy tell us, you'll be lucky if you raise $4 million. People do not invest money during that time of the year. I don't. The only thing I think about is Black Friday and having the kids home. But we raised just under $17 million. Believe it or not, about 75% now that we've analyzed the list over and over again came from our reservation house list, and we're publicly traded on the OTCQB. And that's about it.